Okay, so it's the December 2014 Afgangsprøve, the long paper, and starting with question 1, Esther's part-time job. In her spare time, Esther works in a grill bar. She earns $68.96 per hour. One Monday, Esther works from 15:30 to 17:30. How much money does Esther earn in all on this particular Monday? Okay, so that's fairly obvious that it's 2 times 68.96. Now, for some censors, some moderators, you might want to show how you got the 2, because it's not obvious in the question. So you might say 17.5 hours minus 15.5 hours instead of 2. So showing how you got 2 hours from 17:30, take away 15:30. And that comes to 137.92. Second question, or second part of the first question. When Esther works after 17:30, she gets like a bonus, a supplement of 12.38 kroner per hour on top of her hourly rate of 68.96. One Thursday, Esther works from 16:30 to 20:30. So you can see some of those hours are in regular time, some of them are in the bonus time. How much money did Esther earn in all on this particular Thursday? So I've written she earned, 4 hours. She worked 4 hours in total from 16:30 to 20:30. So 4 times 68.96. But then 3 of those hours were at the bonus rate. So for 3 of those 4 hours, she got an extra 12.38. So I've written that as the 4 hours at the regular rate plus an extra 12.38 for each of the 3 hours. And that all comes to 312.98. Question 3. Esther would like to earn 20,000 a month. Investigate with a calculation how much money Esther has to work in order to earn 2,000 if half of her hours are before 17:30. So in other words, half of her hours she's going to be earning the regular rate, and half of her hours she's going to be earning the bonus rate. Now, I decided to set this up as an algebra question. So I said that she works, let's say she works X hours in total, then she's going to work half of those hours, half X hours at the regular rate, 68.96. So for those hours, she earns 68.96 times a half times X, because it's only half of the hours. And then she works another 0.5X hours, the other half X of the hours, at the higher rate, 68.96 plus 12.38. So for the other half of the hours, the other half X, she's earning 81.34 per hour. So in total for those hours, she earns 81.34 times half times X. Half there because it's only half of the hours she's working at that rate. So if we put those two together, that should make the 2,000 that she wants to earn. So we can set that up as an equation. 68.96 times a half times X plus 81.34 times a half times X makes 2,000. So those two different amounts she earns at the lower and higher rate add up to make 1,000. And the question is, what is X? What is the number of hours so that that equals 1,000? Well, you can simplify all of this. 68.96 times a half times X is the same as 34.48 times X, because 68.96 times 0.5 is 34.48. And similarly, 81.34 times 0.5 is 40.67. So you get 34.48x plus 40.67x added up make 2,000. And those two x terms you can put together, 34.48 plus 40.67 x's make 75.15x. So 75.15 times x equals 2,000. Now, in fact, 75.15 is just the average of the two rates of pay. So you could have done it another way without algebra and figured out that if she works half the hours at the lower rate and half the hours at the higher rate, then on average she'll earn 75.15 an hour. So you could have just said all of the hours, x hours, at an average of 75.15 makes 2,000 kroner, because that's what she wants to earn. So we'd like to find out what x is, so we divide both sides by 75.15, and we get that x is about 27. So she has to work for 27 hours. There it is, 27 hours. Oh, and now it would be okay to set this out using a few lines. Wherever it says undersøge, investigate, I would say it's okay to have a few lines of calculation before you get to the answer. If you wanted to set this out in a single line, I'd be saying, well, where did I get that 27 from? I got that from taking the 2,000 and dividing it by 75.15. Where did I get the 75.15 from? Well, it was the average of the two rates of pay. So it was the two rates of pay added up divided by 2. Where did I get 81.34 from? Well, I got it from the regular rate of pay plus the bonus. So you could trace back your steps in order to get that in a single calculation that gives you 27 hours. But I think because it says investigate it, then it's okay to use a few lines in order to get the answer. So the step-by-step algebra is just as good, I would say, as the single line answer. Okay, question 1.4. Esther has to pay 8% in, well, deductions from the money she earns. The rest of the money she gets paid out. So how much money does she have to earn? How much money does Esther get paid if she earns 2,000? So she earns 2,000, but she loses 8% of that in deductions. So she only gets 92%, 92 hundredths of 2,000. So I've written 92 on the top, 100 on the bottom for 92%, times 2,000 of 2,000, and that comes to 1,840. Now, for some people marking this, you might want to show where the 92 comes from, because it's not anywhere in the question. So you could possibly, instead of writing 92, write 100 minus 8, and then you can see that it comes from the 8%. But in any case, the answer is 1,840. Now, the last part of the question, how much money does Esther have to earn in order to get paid 2,000? So that's after the deductions. Now remember, the deductions were 8%, but important thing, it's not 8% of 2,000. She earns some bigger amount, then they take off 8% of that bigger amount, and she's left with 2,000. So it would be a mistake to work out 8% of 2,000 and add it on. You have to say that the 2,000 she's left with has to be 92%. So whatever she earned in the first place, the bigger amount, that's the 100%. Then they take off 8% of that, and you're left with 92%. So she's left with 92%, which she wants to be 2,000 kroner. And then you can work out, if 92% is 2,000 kroner, you can work out what 1% is by dividing by 92. Then you can work out what the 100% is by multiplying that by 100. And if you do all of that, you get that she had to earn 2,173.91, or I'd accept 0.92 because the answer was actually somewhere in between. So that's the big amount she earns. They take off 8% of that bigger amount, and then she's left with the 2,000. So here's my answers set out neatly, and notice how I do this. You've got the question numbers neatly lined up down the page. You've got a little explanation what each question is about, lined up down the page. Then you've got the calculations, and the start of the calculation lines up down the page. The end of the calculation and the units afterwards, they won't necessarily line up because all of these things will be different sizes. But they do like the calculation to be in a nice bracket, irrespective of whether it's mathematically necessary or not. Then you've got the equal sign lined up down the page. Then you've got all of the numbers lined up at the decimal. So you can see all the tens lined up, all the hundreds lined up, and you can see how big all the numbers are. Then you've got the units that they're in lined up down the page, krona or hours or whatever it happens to be. And you've got the answers themselves double underlined. So that is an ideal way to set these out. And here are the marks that you get for each of those. 3, 4, 4, 4, 4.